In this section, we are going to study about the private elements in object-oriented programming. So, if we have some background of C++, we would have seen there are three types of elements or attributes. One is the private, one is protected, and then there is the public ones. However, if we look at the Python terminology or Python design, there is no concept of protected variables at all. Normally, we are done by using the public functions, the public attributes. But yes, there is a choice of defining the private elements also. And so we can say that like most languages of the pattern of C++ or Java, Python also has concept of private elements. So which can be grouped like private functions which cannot be called from outside their module, or private class methods which can't be called from outside their class, or private attributes which can't be accessed from outside their class. However, syntactically we have to define here the private elements. So in Python, whether a function, a method, or an attribute is private or public is determined only by its name. So what we say is only there's a syntactical sugar, or by syntax itself, the interpreter is able to identify whether the particular attribute is private or not. So if the name of a Python function or a class method or an attribute starts with double underscore, example, if the name of attribute is like underscore underscore x, then this becomes like a private attribute. To be noted, however, that only it should start with double underscore and should not end with double underscore. So all the attributes or function names, etc., which start with double underscore and do not end with it are private. Everything else is public. And as also we have discussed earlier, that Python has no concept of protected class methods at all. So what is the advantage of private in Python or in any OOP language? Is quite simple. That suppose we do not want the object attributes to be visible outside the class definition, then we should declare them as private. That's one use case. Another use case is that when we do not want a child class to inherit a particular attribute or particular behavior from parent class, then that attribute should be defined as private in the parent class. So if something is private in the parent class, that won't be derived by its child class. So now we'll see practically with the help of a small program how do we define a private element in Python inside a class. Let's take a simple class, foo counter. There's a colon. Now here we'll write our code of the class. Let's take one private class variable. So this should start with double underscore, and let's say I just call it secret count. Its value will be 0. Since this is a class variable, any object of this class can actually refer to it at any point of time. Now we have one more function. As discussed, any function normally will have first argument as self, which will be referring to the object of this class. So, and whenever foo is called, we'll try to update this or increment the secret count by 1. So what we can do is, secret count is accessible both through the object and class, so what we can do is self dot under secret count plus is equal to 1, which is incrementing this by 1, and then we print this one. Now, so Assume this is the class definition. Now we can define one object for this. Let's say obj1 is the object for this class foo counter. Let's now call with this object the foo method. So the secret count, which was initially 0, has become now 1. If we keep on calling this, we'll see this is getting incremented by 1 every time. However, the concept that we have to float here that is this variable accessible outside the class or not. Now, since this is private, it should not be ideally accessible through object. So, which means I should not be able to do obj1 dot under secret count. So this says that foo counter instance has no attribute under secret count. So this is what private basically means, that outside the class definition through the object I am not able to access this attribute. However, if we see inside the class, we were able to access through self, and self is again nothing else but an object. So through the object inside the class I am able to access this private variable or private attribute, but it's not visible outside. Similar thing we'll see at the time of derivation or inheritance, that if some attribute or function is made private, then a child class of that parent class will not be able to inherit that attribute or that functionality. So Python has adopted a minimalist approach. So normally we know what we are doing in Python with the objects. So sometimes private functions or methods might not be very useful, but still some people are accustomed to using private data, and for them this is an obvious choice to use. One more interesting thing to actually highlight here, that although through the object this is not accessible, the secret count is not accessible outside the class. However, there is a syntactical sugar, and if we understand the way Python stores internally, so Python doesn't name mangling. So how it stores the private attributes is by putting a prefix of underscore class name and then the private attribute. Through obj1 I can use single underscore the class name and then my secret count, and this becomes accessible. So directly through the object it was not accessible. However, people who know the internals of Python storage would know that these private functions or attributes are stored with a prefix of single underscore and class name. Kindly note that the prefix is single underscore the class name, and then you have the private attribute, and if we combine this we'll be able to print it. We'll see more on this in later sessions. Thank you.